Hey guys, thanks so much for stopping in. I sure appreciate it. If you follow me on Instagram, then you're already aware of my February no buy. Now, I know February's not over yet, but it's almost there, and I have zero intentions of buying any products the remainder of this month, and I'll explain why here in a minute. But I have not bought any products that released in 2024 in 2024, and I have bought nothing makeup related or even skincare related in the month of February. And for me, that is mind-blowing. I'm an impulse buyer. I want the new next best thing. So for me to have gone this long without purchasing something is kind of mind-blowing and incredible. So let's talk about how I have managed this no buy and how I've managed to say no to everything that's been released so far this year. Okay guys, so basically this is kind of like a no, I didn't buy it and here's why situation. I am just so proud of myself because like I've already said, I'm an impulse buyer and I always want the new next best thing. So the fact that there's been so many things released that grabbed my attention and I've said no to, I'm just so proud of myself and super impressed. So I wanted to share kind of how I was able to talk myself out of some of these releases and how I maintained this no buy for February. The first reason is because March is quite literally around the corner, and March is my birthday month. And I have a tendency to spoil myself on my birthday because I don't have a significant other to do that for me, so I do it to myself. Maybe that's a little selfish, I don't know, but I do it anyways. And so I spoil myself, but also I do know that Nomad, one of my favorite brands, is coming out with a palette in March, and they've done a sneak peek of the cover, and it's green. If you've been here for a minute, you know how I feel about my greens. So it's like, oh no. So I know I've got that coming, and also ABH usually has a palette drop in March. So knowing that those things are coming, I made some choices because I have a feeling my wallet's gonna hurt real bad in March. But let me scoot this way. That way I can put up pictures right here of all the things that we're gonna talk about today and what I've managed to talk myself out of. And here we go. These are in no particular order, just how they caught my attention and where I snagged them from. Also, I have the photo card at the top of each picture. It's mostly from Point Click Vibes. If you guys don't follow them and you want to, the little Instagram name is up there. Otherwise, if it's not Point Click Vibes, it's captured in there. But I like to give credit where credit is due, so these are not my pictures. But first up here is the ColourPop and Twilight collection. So this one was easy because it sold out before I could do anything about it. So that definitely helped with the whole buying thing. Right now, I should probably have started with this. Right now, I am on a no buy, period, zero zilch, not a no buy, for bronzer, blush, and highlight. I have more than I know what to do with. I just need to stop. So, no buy bronzer, blush, highlighter, and lip products are 2 out, 1 in. I can't tell myself not to buy lip products because it's one of my favorite parts of makeup with eyeshadow palettes, and I have no rules on eyeshadow palettes. It's more of just what am I feeling at the moment. But lip products are 2 out, 1 in, so I can't buy lip products until I've gotten rid of 2. And so in this Twilight collection, I was only interested in the lip product and the palette, but having that 2 out, 1 in rule eliminated the lip products. The palette, though, I did really like the palette when it first released, and I had intentions of buying it, but it sold out so quick. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just wait for it to restock, because these are the blue tones that I would wear, these muted sky blue colors. These are going to be the ones that I would wear. So for me, the greens, and it's kind of neutral. I just love the vibe of this palette. I didn't love like the artwork or anything, but I did love the vibes of the palette, but the fact it sold out really canceled that ability to buy it. And so now that it's been out for some time, I know they're doing a restock, but it's been out long enough that I'm like, I don't need this anymore. I'm good. Thanks though. Next up here is the Smashbox face palette. I don't know the full like true name of this one, but it's a face palette. It's got, each of them has a highlight and then like a cheek blush, a sculpting blush, and then a contour or bronzer shade, depending on which one you got and how you choose to use it, of course. But like I said, I'm on a no buy for bronzer, blush, and highlighter. So even though this captured my attention and still has my attention, and I'm still, every time I see it, I'm like, add to cart, add to cart. I have to remind myself I'm on a no buy for every product in this palette. So I still want it. I'm not going to buy it, but I still want it. So this isn't a complete loss just yet. We'll see how the year goes. I might revisit this later. Okay, so this is the Elf Pout Clout lip product. Okay, so this one was a hard one for me. Even though I'm on a 2 out 1 in, I had intentions of buying this one anyways, despite my goal or my rule or whatever I had set for myself. But what ended up stopping me was I've started seeing a lot of reviews on this compared to the, compared to these two products here. This one is the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lip, and this is the NYX Fat Oil Slick Click. So I was seeing the reviews compared to these two products, and a lot of people were saying that this product is more similar to the Tarte version than it is the NYX version. I will tell you that I prefer the NYX version. The Tarte formula to me is too soft, too emollient, too melty, and it makes the applicator messy. And I just, no matter if I wear a lip liner, no lip liner, whatever, because it is so emollient and so creamy and, you know, just soft, it like navigates around my lips, and it almost looks like that ring like kids get when their lips are chapped and they lick their lips and like that circle and they get that funky ring around their lips. That's what it ends up looking like on me, a shiny red ring, because it just navigates off my lips because it's too soft. So I like the moisturization aspect of it, but I don't like the way it wears. It's not the most comfortable for me because I'm always, you know, wondering, is this floating on my face, or, you know, so I like the NYX Slick Click better because it's a little bit more of a solid formula. It is definitely more of a balm texture. So it's a firmer formula. It doesn't slip and slide. It's not overly emollient or creamy. So I definitely prefer the texture and formula of the NYX Slick Click over the Tarte Maracuja Juicy Lip. And from a lot of the reviews, I'm seeing that Elf is closer to the Tarte version. So for me, that was a sign that I could let this one go and not have any FOMO about it. So I have let this one go and I can move on from it. Next up comes from one of my favorite brands I kind of mentioned earlier. Nomad has a palette dropping in March, but they had this palette drop earlier in the year. I believe it was early January perhaps. But this is the New Zealand Stargazing palette. I love Nomad's formula, especially in their last like 2 palettes. They've really revved up their shimmer formula. Their mattes are beautiful. They blend stunningly with very minimal effort. They're perfectly pigmented in my own humble opinion, but I really do like Nomad. I like their customer service. I love their products. I love their purpose. I love Nomad, but this particular color story just did not speak to me. These pinks and purples and blues, honestly, I would wear them maybe 2 to 3 times a year, and that's in the spring. So not even times a year, just days a year, 2 or 3 days a year. So for me, it wasn't, I felt guilty making a purchase just because I liked the company, if that palette was just going to sit in my collection. So that's why I was able to say no to this. It hurt my heart a little bit because I want to support Nomad because, again, they're one of the few indie brands that their customer service absolutely steals the show, and they keep it fairly affordable. So I love Nomad and I love supporting them, but I just couldn't justify paying for this palette and have it sit in a drawer and only use it twice a year. Here's another palette. This is the Beauty Bay Reckless Romance palette. This color story is beautiful. And right now I'm totally into these tones, these berries and mauves and pinks and neutrals. I am loving those colors. However, at this point, I feel like I have enough of those in my collection. So, and I feel myself already starting to lose the lust for these colors. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready for some greens. I'm ready for some golds. So I feel myself ready to transition out of these colors. So with what I've got in my collection and the transition of seasons coming and knowing myself, I just felt like this was not the right time for me to pick up this palette. Okay, y'all. This Melt Stack, I haven't purchased it yet. Okay, hear me out. I love this, and I love Melt Mattes. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It blends like butter. I love it so much. Their shimmers are okay. They're not my favorite, but they're okay. But the concept of this stack, which I know they had stacks in the past, but I wasn't big into the makeup community at that time. I kind of came as those were phasing out and disappearing. But the fact that this stack is comparable to like a tube of lipstick makes it so attractive for traveling purposes. And I have a vacation coming up towards the end of March. And so I'm thinking, I need this for travel. But Michaela, girl, you want to pay $30 for something the size of a tube of lipstick and use it once? Because after this trip in March, other than a move over the summer, I ain't going nowhere. Where am I traveling to? My bank account says you can travel to the couch, lady, and that's about as far as you go after this. But I'm still struggling to convince myself that I don't need this. I still feel like I need this. I still feel like I want this. But I haven't purchased it yet. So I haven't fully talked myself out of this one, even though logically, hello, Mac, come on. We'll come back. This one, on the other hand, Huda Beauty, these are the creamy, I think the Creamy Obsessions palettes, the creamy palette. So I guess 8 out of 9 of the shades in these palettes are that creamy, cream to powder formula. I don't mind that eyeshadow. I know Natasha Denona's palettes have cream to powder formulas, and I actually am wearing cream to powder today. They don't bother me. I don't care either way about them. Let's say that. I don't love them, but I don't dislike them. They're just there, and they perform fine for me. And once I know that it's a cream to powder, I know how to work it. So I don't have feelings either way about that type of formula. The cooler color tone story, that purpley pinky one, that's just not a color story I'm into, so I can easily pass on that one. But that more neutral brown palette the color story is beautiful, but all of the reviews I've seen on this, because of the texture of these formulas, they come across very, very light. Even the deepest shade looks like it struggles to build up. Of course, I haven't tested it. I haven't played with this formula from this company, so I can't be 100% certain that that's how it functions, but all of the looks I've seen from these palettes have been very soft, very subtle, just not the way that I like to wear my makeup, so it became intriguing, and then I lost interest. It's nothing, like, horrible. I think that this just wasn't for me, but what I do appreciate about this the most is the innovativeness. Is that a word? Well, it is now. The innovativeness of this palette, because this hasn't been done yet, or at least that I'm aware of hasn't been done yet, a fully creamy palette. So I can appreciate her trying to do something new and different to the market, and I'll always give someone kudos for trying something different, even if it's a crash and burn. You try something different, I will always credit you for that. And speaking of innovativeness, the Natasha Denona Hyper Glam palette, something like that. This isn't for me either. I love the concept, though, of the 3 bronzer shades and the blush trio. I love the options like that, and I love a bronzer blush duo. I don't wear highlight very often, and I'm really picky about the highlights I do wear. So for me, the palettes that have a blush highlight in them don't do anything for me, but the bronzer blush duos, that's a hit for me. And I like the color choices that are in here. The eyeshadows don't do much for me. Now, the innovativeness is a whole new formula, and this is a one and done, and it's in Natasha Denona's reel. She indicated that these are meant to be applied with your finger, can still be done with a brush, but most impactful with your finger. As someone who travels, if I was into these shadows, this would be incredible. But again, like we just said, I am going to travel once this year and probably not again for a very long time. So this doesn't serve a purpose for me. But again, I appreciate something new, trying something different. So way to go, Natasha Denona. This is super cool. It's just not in my budget for me right now, but I do want to try this formula. It does intrigue me. Okay, y'all, this one makes me feel icky. This one makes me feel dark and dirty. Get your mind out of the gutter. That's not the way I mean. But this one makes me feel kind of crappy as a human. Here's why. This palette is stunning. I love everything about this palette. It is matte heavy, which I love. I love a 50-50 split or matte heavy. They gave me matte heavy. Warm neutrals. They gave us warm neutrals. Pops of green. There are pops of green. I love, as I'm smacking things, I love this palette so much. And if you can't see the top, it's from Endley Rain. It's the Groovy Garden palette. Here's where I feel like a crappy human being, because I really struggle to buy from indie brands like this, because I guarantee you this is going to sell out in less than 24 hours. I am trying really hard to not be an impulse buyer, and I don't want to purchase this in 24 hours. Now, granted, this has been out for a while, so I've had time to think about it. And if I didn't have the concern I'm about to voice to you next, I would probably have purchased this on release date. I think it's like 27th or 28th. Here's where I struggle, is if you don't catch it in that first round of orders, it goes into a pre-order status. It could be months before you see your palette. I can't do that. I have been screwed by 3 pre-orders, 2 different brands, 3 pre-orders. I can't do pre-orders, you guys. These are not cheap palettes, okay? I believe this palette is around $68. Add $4 or $5 for taxes. Now you're over $70, and shipping is usually minimum $10, but I've seen several indie companies where they have shipping at $12, $14. You're creeping up on an $80 palette. I cannot drop $80 on a palette that I won't get for possibly 8 weeks. I can't do that. And the other issue I have too is in those 8 weeks that I'm waiting on my palette to get here, there's going to be 5 other palettes that drop. And I might be able to get those faster and sooner. And they're guaranteed. You know what I mean? There's certain brands that will guarantee if your package gets lost, if it's damaged, they're going to take care of it. And I know these indie brands can't really afford to just replace palettes that don't come out correctly, especially if you're waiting and it's a pre-order. You run the risk of it showing up damaged or lost, and there's really not much you can do about it. I've noticed a lot of indie brands are starting to offer that route protection, but that's an additional cost to us as a consumer. And I get it. I know why they have to do that. I just don't like it. And because of that, it is a huge deterrent from purchasing from indie brands, because they are expensive. It takes a long time to get them, and they are not protected. And I'm not mad at the brands for that, because again, I understand why it's done this way, but that's my deterrent from purchasing from indie brands. And it sucks because like this palette is stunning, but I very much look forward to the point where a lot of these bigger indie brands like Adept, Endley Rain, Lethal, Unearthly. I cannot wait until they reach a point where pre-orders is not a thing. I don't know if they ever will, but that will be the point that I actually buy from indie brands again. Now, if for some reason this palette doesn't sell out right away, I will end up getting it, but I just won't do a pre-order. Odin's Eye. This is an indie brand that I will buy from because they do have good customer service. I have had a palette get lost. They replaced it with no questions asked. So, and shipping is actually reasonable, even though it's coming from a whole nother country. But Odin's Eye, I do love. However, these color stories don't do much for me. I know that they are a second round collab, and I'm super happy for these creators. I'm really excited that they got to do another round with Odin's Eye. This is really cool. It's just not a color story for me. If I had to choose one out of the 3, it's going to be the Earthwood palette. But at this point, these color stories, I was not immediately intrigued by. And it's me. It's just a color story preference. So I was able to pass on these. Okay, y'all. Adept Flying Fiddles. I've already gone over my issue with pre-orders in any brand, so I'm not going there. But that was issue number 1. Issue number 2 with this one, this color story is beautiful. There's only 4 mattes. And the 4 mattes in there, only 2 of them jive with how I would use them with the rest of the palette. The other 2 don't serve me enough purpose to justify the price, the pre-order, all of that goodness. So while this is a stunning palette, and probably the first Adept palette that I've looked at that I'm like, yes, please, add to cart, I didn't buy it. And I've already told you why. Wicked Widow Beauty. This palette was so cute. This is their Lovesick palette. And I did have intentions of buying this one. And it sold out before I could get there. And I don't think she restocked it, which is perfectly fine. Because again, I'm on this train of no impulse buys. So I saw it and I was like, I'm going to wait my 2 weeks. Because that's the deal I have with myself. If I can let it go for 2 weeks and I still want it, then I'll get it. If I can't, then obviously I didn't need it in the first place. Well, it sold out before I could buy it. So I did plan on buying this. It sold out. That solved my problem. Glam Light, the Betty Boop collection. Oh my goodness. So I'm not completely nostalgic with Betty Boop. I like Betty Boop. I was intrigued by this palette and I knew it was going to have reds because it's Betty Boop, duh. But it is a red heavy palette and reds intimidate the crap out of me. And I take them more of a challenge instead of something fun. And I've learned that even though I'm attracted to reds and I feel like I need to basically figure out how to use reds, I'm at a point now where it's like I have enough reds in my collection to satisfy that. I have enough reds in my collection to satisfy that competitive urge to get over my fear of reds. So this one, because it is so red heavy, was an easy pass for me at this point. Okay, y'all. So I am almost out of one of my foundations. And I have a deal with myself that I can't... I'm on not a no buy for everything, but a replenish buy only for almost all of my makeup products. So I have to run out of a product before I can buy a new product. And I have a foundation that's almost gone. Like when I shake the bottle, I'm like, oh, there's like less and less and less every time I shake it. And I don't want to repurchase this one because I've really gone on a really in-depth journey with my dermatologist on my skincare routine, on products that work for me, products that don't. So I'm really learning that I have 4 foundations right now. And 2 out of the 4 do not jive with me. They're too drying. I have dry to very dry skin, and it explains why it never looks smooth on my skin. And I always just kind of thought, honestly, the whole you need a dewy foundation if you have dry skin, you need matte if you have oily. I never really put much thought or effort into that. I just found ones that had my shade. Well, now that we've gone really in depth with my skincare and I'm really actually seeing certain foundations work for me and certain foundations not working for me, it's making so much more sense. So 2 out of my 4 foundations are just not working for me. So they're about to be decluttered. But one of the 2 that does work for me is almost empty. So I'm really looking forward to trying a new foundation. And this was the foundation that popped up on my radar. And this is the Makeup Forever Hydrating Foundation. It's $47. I'm sorry, what? Yes, $47 for a foundation. Okay, one of the 2 foundations that is jiving with me is an $8 Maybelline foundation. I won't pay $47 for a foundation. I'm going to be real and honest and straight with you. I won't do it. Now, if they wanted to send it to me, I would be so grateful. But they're not going to. So I need to find something that works for me. And even though I've seen a lot of reviews on this, a lot of positive about this, I cannot and will not spend $47 on a foundation. It won't happen. But yeah, so these are all the products that intrigued me one way or another that I thought I was going to buy and end up not buying for the various reasons that I told you, but I'm just so proud of myself. I made it through the month of February without buying anything, and I know that March is going to be hard on me. But thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I sure appreciate you, and I will catch you in my next one. Later much!